I'm very pleased this evening to have Deron Marquez. Deron was a chairman of the San Manuel Board of Mission Indians from 1999 through 2006. He's instrumental in designing and directing a progressive agenda of social, economic, and governance development for the tribal government and community. Under his leadership, the tribe has entered into successful business ventures with the goal of securing critical government revenues well into the future. The tribe also enhanced its governance capabilities, instituted public services for tribal members, and solidified intergovernmental relations at the local, state, and national levels under his leadership. He is a nationally recognized speaker and lecturer on issues such as economic development, tribal governments, and tribal sovereignty. He is a member of the Board of Trustees at Claremont Graduate University, as well as the co-founder and director of the Tribal Administration Certificate Program, a program providing instruction on tribal sovereignty, tribal law, tribal gaming, and management. And Deron, you might want to extend this a little bit with self-introduction, because I'm sure there's some details I might have overlooked.
Okay, I mean, it's you pretty much nailed everything on the head right there. So, when I first took over as a tribal chairman for my tribe back in 1999, and this goes into part of the story we're going to talk about today as far as the Indian gaming model goes. I took over a government, loosely called that, of about 7 people trying to run and operate a government for a community that was trying to figure out how to form and function. Because of Indian gaming, we have been able to do a lot of great things. And during my time as tribal chair, we grew our government from a 7-person operation to about 330. And during that time frame, we branched out from a casino operation to hotels in Washington, D.C., down to Orange County, where we had created and basically purchased, I should say, office buildings, as well as up to Sacramento. So we became very aggressive in diversifying our portfolio away from gaming, but not to exclude gaming, and realizing that we'll never ever categorize anything else as far as the gaming world goes into the same mechanisms by which gaming provides. So gaming has become this incredibly positive story within Indian country.
How many have ever been in what we call Indian country? You guys. My son and daughter here, they don't count. So what part of the world have you been in?
I grew up I grew up in upstate New York.
Okay, so Oneida.
Yeah, Oneida. I grew up in the Finger Lakes.
I would say Finger Lakes?
Yeah, Keuka, Seneca.
Okay, Seneca, up there where now they're up in Buffalo.
Yep.
Yeah. Sir?
All over the western United States. So
That's a lot of territory, sir.
Navajo, Hopi.
Oh, okay. My backyard now. I'm in Arizona now, so the Hopi, the Navajo, the pies, as we call them. There's, in case you don't know, a Walla pie, Havasu pie. I mean, it goes on forever. So it seems like, and there's a breakdown within those. Sir? Did you hang up for?
Just Alaska and also California, Southern California.
Oh, okay. What part of Southern California?
Actually, right in your area.
God's country, the best place to be in.
High desert area.
High desert? Hesperia, Victorville, or Lancaster?
Victorville.
Okay. That's part of our ancestral territory. That is where most of, if you didn't know, back in the days, we have found seashells in some of our areas by which trade was taking place. So there was very healthy economies, if you will, between the Ohlone or the coastal tribes all the way out to Chemehueve, which is on the Colorado River. So there was a healthy economy way back in the day with trade and trade routes. And in case you didn't know, if those of you who have been part of that world, I-40 was constructed on the old trade routes. The 101, the 5, those were all old paths that we used to utilize way back in the day for trade. In fact, the missions were formulated on those same paths. If you ever follow Jay Serra's route, you're on the same path that many of our people stroll down as they went back and forth. So Indian country is a very, very, very diverse. Anyone else? I'm sorry, did I skip anyone? You, sir?
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, so the Pueblos. We were just talking about you, sir. Not you particulars, we don't know you yet, but your backyard is the best place for Mexican food ever. Ever. New Mexican food, they call it, right? Because you're pompous and arrogant, and I like it. So, no, it's the best food. You ever go to New Mexico, you have to eat anywhere. It's like here. There's not a bad meal. I've had like, I don't know, 200 meals since I've been here for the last 7 days, and everyone is incredibly good. So I probably put on 20 pounds since I've been here. So, but all right. So you kind of have a familiarity with tribal worlds. Everyone here seems to have a exposure to Indian gaming, and so we're going to have a little story about Indian gaming and kind of maybe show some things you haven't yet been exposed to. And if you have any questions as we move forward, please feel free to stop, raise your hand, and we'll have a chat. It's good stuff. So here's Indian country, as you all talked about. Here's where you came from, right? And this is the best Mexican food, new Mexican food. Sorry, I want to insult you like that. Right there. Upstate New York. I can't even see it. Yep. Someplace over there. Never ate there, sir. Can't really say.
Keep driving.
Okay, okay. But this is going to be an interesting part of our conversation today as we move forward. And then Alaska, we were just up in Alaska. We had a cultural exchange. My tribe took a trip up there. We spent 7 days up in Alaska in discussing and having good conversations and telling stories with the Tlingit up there. Wonderful time. In fact, we got back, and 2 weeks later, we're in Japan. So it's been a kind of a whirlwind this last month of travel. But this is what Indian country looks like. Now, obviously, before this map, before there was the United States, this was all Indian country. Little fun fact, 1887, 2/3 of the American Indians' lands, our lands, were taken out of our possession. It's called the Allotment Act. It was a wonderful experience by which the Western manifest destiny came to fruition to its totality. Homestead Act, familiar with the Homestead Act? Oklahoma, if you're from the area of Oklahoma, that's right there. That used to be called Indian Territory. As you can see, it is no longer considered Indian Territory, though it's heavily populated with Indians. There's one reservation in the whole area. So 2/3 of our land holdings went out of our control in one act in 1887. This is what we were left with. So when it comes to economic development on reservations, as you can see, there is not a whole lot to do with this land. For those you're familiar with Arizona, it's the middle of nowhere. There's not a whole lot to do there. In California, at one time, all these reservations were in the middle of nowhere. Well, some of these still are, but mostly down here in Southern California. If you've been down to Southern California recently, you don't know where one city stops and one city ends. Kind of like right out here. It just keeps going and going and going. And so all this development butted up against reservations. With that, for these tribes here, as we'll talk about a little later, the Indian gaming phenomena became a huge boom for these individuals. These tribes down here have enjoyed some of the best success in operating these operations. But to get there, they has to have an understanding that we're going to kind of show you some of the developments within the world of gaming in California and as well as the United States. The lottery, much like here, is played heavily. I think here it's about a $20 million industry per year, or $20 billion industry per year. Same thing back home. It is something that has been, obviously, when you have progressives back home and the jackpots, some crazy amount of money, the play goes up. But lotteries, for the most part, have been around in the United States going back to financing the Revolutionary War. They sold lottery tickets back then to help pay for the cost of the war. So lotteries are not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination, but they're just more sophisticated. And they seem to be pretty resistant to the economy. Obviously, in 2008 and 2009, there was a dip in the economy, but not a real large dip in lottery play. In fact, in the Mideast, in your backyard, sir, they actually went up. So they're pretty resistant to the economy, and they stay pretty strong throughout time. So the states have enjoyed a nice comfort level when it comes to lotteries. Commercial gaming, same thing. Commercial gaming, again, in 08, 09, everyone took a little bit of a dip, but not crazy amounts of money were left on the tables, if you will, in the commercial gaming industry. 23 of the lower 48 states do enjoy some type of commercial gaming, but that's not including your off-track betting, your horse tracks, your race tracks. This is just strictly casino gaming operation. Las Vegas and New Jersey are considered your more traditional gaming centers. Interesting enough, in the most recent past few years, states have entered into new types of gaming ventures who at one time did not engage in gaming. Pennsylvania, Florida, and New York are your newest online, not gaming online, but coming online gaming-wise as far as casino operations go. Pennsylvania has kind of the same model that's being discussed here, where operators pay for licenses and they pay fees and they have the ability to perform and operate casinos. Florida, they're still dealing with racinos, which are slot machines at racetracks. So they're still trying to figure it out and figure out how they're going to capitalize the most on those operations. New York is probably one of the more interesting ones. Your backyard, sir. They have allowed 7 sites, I think it is, to operate casinos. And the way they do it, I love it because it's such an interesting way of, you have to petition for a license. In that application you file, you give the state of New York $1 million. That's not to say you're going to get a license, but it's to be considered. So they allow that to go forward. Then you kind of bid for one of the spots, and each spot has a different ranking system. The better locations, the fee for that license goes up. I think it caps off at $200 million or $20 million. It's a large amount of money. And then for each slot machine you put in play, it's $500 a year. So the state is always making their money that way, but that's it. So after that, the operators are free and clear to make money as they see fit.
They're going to have a licensing period, like 7 years or 10 years, and then they have to re-up the license, right?
I believe it's 10 years, then they have to,
They have to pay again, basically.
yeah,
And it might be adjusted.
yeah, it's,
It's business.
it's on top of your 500 per slot machine, then you got to pony up again. So yeah, there's a revolving door, if you will, when it comes to the New York model. And the commercial gambling revenue in the United States is pretty healthy. It's $40.5 billion. It grew, it went up, so it's not like it's going down. It's having a wonderful exposure in these new markets, Pennsylvania, Florida, New York. So the interesting thing about New Jersey now is that New Jersey is starting to, and I think they just went live with it, sports betting. So sports betting is now becoming something that these establishments can now offer if their states pass the laws letting them offer that. For a long time, only Las Vegas and New Jersey, Atlantic City, or maybe it was just Las Vegas that had sports betting. But now, after a Supreme Court ruling, states can now offer sports betting to their facilities within their states. Here's the catch for Indian tribes. This is not something tribes can offer. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. So far so good. Bottom line is gambling in the United States is healthy. Now, we're going to turn our attention to the American Indian model of gaming, and it becomes somewhat confusing, but it's not. We'll walk through it, we'll get through it together. Any questions, please stop. We'll have a conversation further. So in Indian gaming, tribal governments oversee their operations, but they don't do it alone. They are layered with regulations by the state of California, or the state they're in my case, California, the federal government, and the tribes themselves. So, according to the law, Congress, by definition, has these things called Class II gaming, which is your bingo games, your punch board, your lottery-type games, instant bingos. All non-house banked games are considered Class II. So basically, it's us playing against each other. If you've ever been to a card room, it's the same system by which you pay the 25 cents that sit at the seat, and then you play against each other on the card game you're playing. Same concept. The house has no stake in the outcome of the game. But that's what Class 3 is. Class 3 is when the house is now playing. And so Class 3, as defined within the Act, is anything not Class 2, which clears it right up. So anything you plug in, any game of chance, any game where you're banking against the house, it is considered Class 3. For a tribe to engage in Class 3 activities, they have to have what's called a state tribal compact, which is an agreement between the tribe and the state on the types of games, regulations, and it has to be approved by the United States government through the Department of Interior. So far, so good. Pretty clear, pretty simple? Yes. But it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always work that easy. In the case of California, the law said that these compact negotiations had to take place. Well, at that time, Governor Pete Wilson refused to have a conversation with tribes in California. So through a whole host of legal maneuvers, court cases, the tribes, this is when I became tribal chairman in 1999, decided to, after the failure of what was called Prop 5, put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to be voted on by the people of California. It was the first time tribes went to the people to change the constitution of their state that would allow tribes to have gaming operations in the state of California. So through the process of changing the constitution, the tribes were able to, for the first time, have a casino operation that was deemed legal and signed off by the Department of Interior, the state of California, and tribes themselves. So it ushered in this new era of gaming operations within the state of California. And then it was slowly after that, Arizona did the same thing. New Mexico had their own battles. Oregon pretty much was not an issue up in Oregon. New York was already engaged. So the main areas by which casino gaming operations were functioning, we're starting to see the benefits.
Can I ask?
Yes, you can, sir.
A few years ago, I visited Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, and there are huge casino.
Yes.
Is that private casino?
Yes.
Private casino?
Oklahoma is different because they don't have reservations except for one.
And there are so many slot machines. But that is slot machine or lottery machine?
In Oklahoma, you have Class 2, which is a lottery machine.
Lottery machine.
Yeah.
Thank
It's a little different style of play, but it's played very well. In fact, I think there's a Lone Star Casino in Oklahoma is probably the most profitable casino in the United States. All on Class 2 gaming. Yeah, it's a different animal. Oklahoma in itself is a different animal because of the laws that govern just Oklahoma. In fact, there's complete courses taught about Oklahoma that try to explain Oklahoma. It's really confusing. So the laws are a little different, and how they're instructed is a little different. I tripped. So, anyone else? Good? Okay. So the gaming functions within, oh, did I go the wrong way? Uh-oh. There we go. So as we talked about, as tribal state compact are those agreements established between three sovereign entities: the states, the federal government, and the tribal governments. And there's a whole history on this that we won't get into, that states from the beginning did not want to have conversations with tribes about the scope of gaming, the regulatory bodies of gaming down the line. But as time went on, states finally started giving in and found out that being a partner with the tribes is something that is beneficial to the states as well. Some of us even argue that because of Indian gaming, we have trained states to understand the importance and the significance behind government gaming, and that's why you have states like Pennsylvania, New York, Florida coming online with their gaming operations, as we say, because they can cut out the middleman and run it themselves. So why would I depend on someone else when I can just do it myself? And a lot of those compact agreements that they have in those states with tribes allow for that activity to take place. Like in California, if California ever got involved in gaming, the negotiations or the agreed upon compacts with the tribes would come to an end, and we would no longer have to pay the state any money. So there's this thing called exclusionary clauses within these compacts that just say tribes are the only ones who can offer these games, but not all tribes have that language in their compacts. And so you see this more robust gaming operations taking place in New York, in Florida. And of course, in Florida, the big competition is the Hard Rock, owned by the Seminoles. So Florida's now becoming their own gaming operations, slowly but surely, probably going to follow the New York model. But within the act is called the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, or IGRA, IGRA is what we call it. It stipulates that tribes have to use their revenues, their sources of incomes, for these specific areas: to fund tribal government, to provide for the general welfare of the tribal members, promote tribal economic development. And the last two are kind of interesting. You have to donate to charitable organizations, and you have to help fund the local governments around you. So in a very odd twist, where for the longest time local government agencies did not want to assist tribes in any way. At one time, in this county of Riverside, if someone on a reservation called 911, the average response time to that call was 2 hours. Yet, with the creation of Indian gaming, we are told that we have to, by law, provide funds to those local governments who for the longest time refused to service reservations. So it was a really interesting play by Congress to inject these, or this one particular mandate into this law. Tribes had a long history of conflict between counties and reservations. In fact, Indian gaming came to its fruition because of Riverside County trying to close down gaming operations, though they were high-stake bingo operations, at Cabazon and Morongo, which gave birth to the 1987 Cabazon v. California decision, where the Supreme Court ruled that the state of California has no authority on the reservation because the activity was a bifurcated test of criminal versus civil. And since California allowed certain games to be played, like the lottery, at that time they had games, I'm not a gambler, so they had the lottery, and they had, I think it was Keno, these different games inside different 7-Elevens and grocery stores. California had a robust gaming operation already, and so since the state allowed it, they can't say tribes can't have it, and that's why the Rehnquist court, believe it or not, it was Rehnquist, that approved, and even Scalia voted for this Cabazon decision, giving tribes the right to fully go into operating casino operations on their reservations. But rest assured, a year later, Congress clamped down on that with the Indian Game Regulatory Act that put all these rules into play, saying tribes, you have to follow these rules. You can't just go and create your own operations. So, with that being said, tribes still move forward, and within this plan, if you ever hear it called, it's called the Revenue Allocation Plan. These plans are submitted to the Department of Interior for approval. So every tribe, the 474 gaming operations in the United States, has to submit this plan to the United States for approval. So Indian gaming, in a nutshell, is one of the most regulated businesses in the United States. Banking first, we say this tongue-in-cheek, banking first, Indian gaming. We have more bodies of authority on the reservation between the state side, the federal side, and our own regulators on the reservation. So it becomes an interesting dynamic by which tribal gaming is governed by many jurisdictions. With me so far? All right. So with that being said, what's in it for the states in these gaming operations, right? Here's an example by which the state of Arizona has. In the state of Arizona, they have revenue sharing. So the tribe, and these numbers that I have up here are all example. I do not know the numbers Arizona and the tribes are engaged with. I don't want to get in trouble, get a phone call from the Arizona tribe saying, what the hell are you doing? Made up numbers, okay? So if you follow the bouncing ball, you can see that if $15 million comes in, from the top, 1.8 million is kicked off that goes straight to cities, towns, and counties that host these operations, okay? 88% then comes down, it's $13.2 million. From the very beginning, like any good government, 9% of that goes to running the Arizona Benefits Fund, or goes to the department, and 9% goes to the Arizona Benefits Fund, and then another 2% goes to problem gambling. So you see from the very top, it starts to siphon off. And then you have the education fund, you have the trauma and energy and service funds, and the wildlife conservation fund. Then the Arizona Tourism Fund. So you can see where these monies for Arizona are utilized from the tribe for the benefit of the communities around them. Now the golden question here is, in this scheme of monies being used by the state of Arizona, does this meet the requirement of charitable giving and funds to local governments? That question has not been answered, nor has it been tested in the court of law, and nor will it ever be tested in the court of law, because I'll say this. Recently in California, in the Ninth Circuit, you had the Rincon decision. The Rincon decision basically said the state of California can't go back and ask for more money for the same benefits you're already offering. So no one wants to take this question up to the courts because they can say, no, you can't tax. This is a tax for all practical purposes, the gaming operations. So this will never be answered in a court because no one wants to take it up. The tribes are happy with it. The state of Arizona is happy with it. So it's like, stay under the radar, let it go, and everyone will be okay with it. But the bottom line is, states, through this mechanism, are learning, as we talked about recently or earlier, that I don't need this. I can do this all by myself and get more money into the coffers of the state to perform the same things going on right now. So it's a different model than most, but this is government-to-government gaming. It's just not government gaming. And then on Class 2 machines, yes, sir?
Question, the 56% that goes to the Educational Improvement Fund, that is for the reservation or the native, that's for the whole state.
Yes. See the interesting play there? So this is not a tax. It's a revenue sharing. I love the choice of words. We were talking about lawyers earlier, having dinner, and my kids aspire not to go to law school. Right? But, you know, it's a tax. And this is what the Rincon case in California said, a tax is illegal. The Indian Gaming Regulatory Act clearly states states can't tax casino operations or gaming operations or Indian gaming, tribal reservations. There's a long history of court cases from the Supreme Court going back to the 70s that say this. But we're not going to bring it up.
What percent rate for problem gambling?
2%. It's right, right there. 2% problem. Yeah. Okay. So then, in this example, there's the amount right there. Okay. But these are not real numbers. So, this is kind of a model that's played out in a lot of state tribal gaming compacts. Revenue sharing is part of it. And also, just to point this out too, in the state of Arizona as well as California and Washington and other states, there is revenue sharing amongst tribes. Tribes who can't engage in Indian gaming because of their location participate in a different mechanism of revenue sharing amongst the tribes. Like in Arizona, because the Navajo and the Hopi are so far out there, their mechanism is you're allotted a number of machines per population. And you take those machines and you lease them out to the tribes like Salt River, Gila River, who are right there in Scottsdale and Phoenix, to run and operate those machines, and then you pay those tribes those license fees basically back to the reservations that can't afford to build a casino. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, you talked a little bit how the states have, said, hey, we want a piece of the pie as well. That, I mean, it's a very competitive move, right? They want to muscle you out. They're going to, they want to take the profits, but they're also going to take the risk as well, right?
Right.
And you have, I talked to Sal at Caliente earlier this year when I saw him in London, and he was saying a lot of people, they could go to Vegas, but they go to his place because they've got good facilities, good spa, good sports bar, good cigar bar, like make it attractive. So if the states decide to do it directly, they have to do it ups the game, right?
Right.
But it also it also thins the market. Right? I mean, at some point we're going to get oversaturated, and then
Yes.
The business cycle. Okay, 40.5 billion now. There's no guarantee that that's going to continue forever.
It won't.
And it won't. It's going to come crashing down.
Well, that's why you have to diversify. I sit on a board for my tribe. That's my sole job, is finding new business ventures to go into, and it's just not United States. It's across the world. So we have yet to come to Asia, but we're in Europe doing things over there. So that's very true. Proliferation of gaming is going to happen. I mean, eventually, even if it's just tribal casinos, it's going to happen. The state of California gets involved, and it's really going to happen. There's a lot of rumor talk that California is probably going to get into, well, they are trying to get online gaming in California, and they just couldn't do it. But they're not going to stop trying. So Agua Caliente, is, for those who don't know, is out in Palm Springs, probably one of the most lucrative tribes in the United States, even before gaming. Anybody been to Palm Springs? You probably were on the reservation, didn't even know it, because those hotels are all on trust land. It's a checkerboarded reservation, so you have trust, fee. So your the strip there in downtown Palm Springs is all on trust land, or fee land, trust land, fee land. So they've been, long story short, the leases go through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who here just recently are going to settle their court case for losing billions of dollars of tribal money. That they were part of that. They were losing because you don't know, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who's supposed to be managing the land for coal and natural resources, managed to misaccount about $1.1 billion of tribal monies. But they're the government, so it's like, sorry, here's a little money to make you go away. So, but it's that same mentality that Sal, I know Sal, he's like everyone else is very concerned about and watching. And so if the state does get involved, we know we have to counter that and move in a different direction. That's why we diversify and getting not out of gaming, but just spreading ourselves away from gaming. So, so what does Indian gaming, government gaming look like, I should say? Here's some numbers. These are all from the National Indian Gaming Commission, as you can see right up here. So these aren't my numbers. These are all online. You can look them up yourself. So from the very beginning, now I know I said 1988 is when the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was passed, but government's not fast. They take forever to get going. So finally, 1995, they have the National Indian Gaming Commission put in place. So these audits start coming in, and they start tracking the growth of Indian gaming. And as you can see, 95 to 98, we start to see a little slope up. But what happens right here is where you have the explosion in mostly California. California is now online fully with their large casinos. Our casino right now hosts 4,000 slot machines. It is a very big operation in Southern California. Pachanga is the same way. Agua Caliente has 2 casinos. Morongo is the same way. These are big operations, and you start to see these numbers start to climb very fast. So by 2015, you're at $29.9 billion. So from $5 billion, almost $5.5 billion, in 95 to 2015 to 30 billion. The growth within Indian gaming, as we keep talking about where's the saturation point, where's this going to end? Thus far, it has not, but it's going to.
Are you seeing any difference, like different demographics? For example, do your core players skew older, and like young people are playing Fortnite?
There is concerns with the millennials and their inability or their dislike to leave their house. So that is a concern. But in our backyard, from our reservation to the ocean, you've got 20 million people. So we have a very large population to pull from. Thus far, we are, from what we've been told, the second largest foot traffic per year next to Disneyland. So far we are doing well. And we don't have a hotel. We're just a casino operation. Food, restaurants, bars. We don't sell alcohol till 5 o'clock, so they're not coming before 5 o'clock to drink. But we are a one operator facility. Agua's 2. It's tough in California to have more than one facility because the reservations are so small. Unlike Navajo, who has 4, Oklahoma, as you talked about, is just riddled with different operations across their lands because the law is different. But as of today, we are seeing the growth continue, and the next slide will show the one area by which it's not continuing. Rapid City is South Dakota. So South Dakota has always struggled in this world of Indian gaming. They are not the top tiers. The top tiers are those facilities that make $250 million or more a year. South Dakota is that marginal market by which the sole purpose of the Rapid City District, which is South Dakota, is job creation. They're solely there to provide jobs to their members in their communities. So from that perspective, it works for them. Indian gaming was created just for that purpose in the very beginning, as a job created on reservations, because South Dakota, Pine Ridge, has a job unemployment rate of 80+%, has the highest suicide rates, has the highest addictive rates, is a third world country in the middle of the United States. If you've never been there, go. You will be surprised at what you're looking at. You will not believe you are inside the United States on that reservation. Not to mention some of the just outright racism they face in South Dakota with voting right issues, which is a major problem as well. But as you can see, everywhere else, it's doing quite well. In California, Sacramento is called, the region is for California, has 74 facilities, and it's hitting almost $9 billion just in that one area, just in that one state. Most of that is from Southern California, with the exception of Auburn, up in Northern California, and there's one more, Deer Valley, I think it's called, up in Northern California, doing very well in California. In the very beginning in Southern California, Las Vegas was very afraid of what was going to take place, and they were afraid that we were going to be taking some of their gamblers away. And ironically enough, they even put in monies to fight us during our proposition battles. And then they quickly realized, well, at first they realized it's just not going to happen, but then they realized that what was really going on in Southern California is that we're training gamblers to go to Vegas and have that Vegas experience, and now they're all on board with it. Funny thing is, if you're ever in Las Vegas, you will see San Manuel advertisement on the strip in Las Vegas. You will see Pachanga advertisement on the street of Las Vegas. It's been a complete flip to where it was, where they didn't really want us to open, to having us on the strip and being partners in certain areas. Samuel has joined the AGA, the American Gambling Association. It's become a different world now, where we're actually working together instead of against each other. But the vast difference between the two operations of private or commercial gaming and government gaming is what the money's for. We all know what commercial gaming is about. There's no big hidden surprises there. It's about making money, dividends, paying out to the board of directors. Business, right? No big surprise. And no one wishes them ill will. That's just their model. As I shared with you, our model's different. We are told where we have to put our monies. We are told how we have to spend our monies. And so what does that mean for tribal governments? Well, for the first time on a lot of our reservations, we have fire departments. Potawatomi tribe, this is Oklahoma. This is out in Arizona, the yellow one. That Glendale fire truck right there, bought by tribal monies. A tribe bought that for them. So that's part of the process. Masa Grande, they have their own fire department. This is Matawakton Sioux out there in Minnesota, one of the most lucrative Mystic Lakes casino operations in the United States. All these tribes now have fire departments. And you know what they have along with these fire departments? Agreements with their counties. So if a brush fire breaks out, they send their fire crews to go fight fires. In 2003, if you guys are from California, this is San Manuel, this is my reservation. In 2003, if you guys are familiar with the fires of 2003, our fire trucks were fighting fires up in Santa Barbara. Our reservation caught on fire. We had one fire truck. Guess who came to fight the fire on our reservation? San Francisco. It was so ironic to have the San Francisco Fire Department on our reservation fighting a fire, because that's the agreement we entered to, because we had the mechanisms to be part of that agreement to send our fire trucks to the hottest spot, which was Santa Barbara at the moment. The fire wasn't on our reservation at this time. It didn't start up yet, but it did. The following week, we sent ours up. This is kind of the aftermath. You can kind of see it starting to come back here. We were able to fight a fire on our reservation. See these water tanks right here? Those tanks went in 2002. It was the first time on our reservation we had the ability to fight a fire. In years past, when the fires came through, all these buildings, gone. Because of Indian gaming, we were able to put water on the reservation to fight fires. The same year we built this community center right here. So in my lifetime as tribal chair, we built these roads, the infrastructure underneath the roads. Oh, by the way, this whole reservation, fiber optics. We have fiber optics on the reservation, so everyone, there's no excuse not to do your homework, ever again. So fiber optics, we put the fire department in, we put the community center in, we put the water tanks in. There's one way back here, there's one here, and there's one up here off screen. You can't see it. So we were able to do this because of Indian gaming. The federal government's portion of helping us run our reservation per year was roughly $1 million. See these pads? Oh, sorry. See these pads right here for the homes? What you can't see is down here, this little fault line called the San Andreas. Some little earthquake shifter you might have heard from time to time. That's the land by which we sit on. So to cut this pad and to engineer a site, you're looking at $1 million per pad. It's impossible to build a house on the reservation before Indian gaming. With Indian gaming, we're able to do all this. I would never live there. But they choose to live there because this is their home. The ability to provide that is all from Indian gaming. The United States government's $1 million a year, and it's actually a little less, to operate the reservation per federal law. We always say, what was enough to cut one pad. So it was really not enough to do anything with. You try to do things, and then you're in the state of California too, which things are very expensive. So education. Because of Indian gaming, reservations have been able to build schools. In Oklahoma, they have $1 billion to Oklahoma education. Arizona, we talked about this earlier, there it is. And so on and so on. The story plays out throughout Indian country and the United States. Why is it important? Well, if you look at education in Indian country, you can see where we rank. Not very good. In fact, before the group of people behind me, I was the first one on my reservation to graduate from college. I was the first one to graduate with a master's. I was the first one to graduate with a PhD. Today, they're in school. We have one who's in grad school, PhD track. We have two who are on master's programs. The culture is changing because we can afford to send our kids to school. So it's working from that standpoint for our reservation. Plus, we provide funds for other kids from other reservations to go to school. We know that we're the fortunate ones. We're the ones that have the luck of our placement, so we're able to help out other tribes send their kids to school. We have we have relationships with UCLA, University of Redlands, Claremont Graduate University, Cal State San Bernardino, that allow for this interaction between ourselves and these institutions for higher education, because we believe, obviously, the future rests in education. Do you have a question, or are you just?
I was just scratching my head.
Okay. I didn't want to ignore you, sir. I wanted to be with you. So, again, this is more of the same right here. As you can see where we rank. But it's getting better. Getting better. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's getting better. College bound. All right, 17%. We'll get there. Here's an interesting little fun fact about reservation life. There are more people living off reservation than ever before. So they are hopefully able to get a little better education, hopefully get into college, because the reservations that they're coming off of are not in really great shape, and then get back to their reservation and help rebuild their reservation. It's kind of the hope that we have going on. Healthcare. Now, there's been a lot of talk the last few years about Obamacare. For it, against it, doesn't matter. Tribes are not part of Obamacare. Tribes have their own healthcare program, and believe it or not, it's awful, but it's better than nothing. And then the question always flows from that is, why do tribes have their own national healthcare program? Because that's what it really is, right? Treaties that were signed back in the 1800s provided health care for Indians. So when Manifest Destiny rolled forward into the other parts of the United States, those rights were extended onto those other tribes. And so health care became what is called Indian Health Services, IHS. And you'll see on reservations, hospitals in certain reservations or clinics on certain reservations. Those are elements by which are holdovers to the federal responsibility. There's a whole section called the Marshall Trilogy that discussed trust relationship back from the 1830s. Those things roll true today. So healthcare is something that the United States government still provides. It's not the best healthcare, but it's healthcare. So, by the way, if you're taking notes, you're trying to write this stuff down, I think there's a copy here for you guys, correct, Kyle? And you can disseminate it as you wish.
We'll have it on YouTube.
Perfect. So if you're trying to write things down, it'll be here for you guys. So it's in healthcare, federal prisoners, Indian healthcare. So that's how great it is. That's where it ranks as far as the cost being utilized per person is just right ahead of federal prisoners. The joke was, for the longest time, and this was a joke, that tribal people would say, well, I'll just get arrested and go get my teeth fixed. It was a joke, but it was true. I mean, you kind of see it right here. I'm sick, so let me get arrested, and I'll go to jail, and then I'll get health care. I mean, sick as that is, there's some truth to that statement. And then there's the national average way up here. Okay. Now, with Indian gaming, the ability of tribes to provide their own health care to their own people has changed that graph. It's changed, I'm sorry, so I'll put it back up. It has changed this number to something way out here. Tribes now have some of the best health care programs there is. And why not? We should. At one time, Ted and I were talking about this earlier, at one time before colonization, tribal people were said to have lived into their hundreds because of their diets, because of their lifestyles. Now the average age is what, 55, 56 for American Indians? Not good. And if you get into the mission system discussion that we have in California, it's even worse. So that's a whole different, maybe Cal will bring you back, we'll have that conversation sometime. So, but I don't want to bum anyone out, but the long story short here is tribes have not enjoyed a successful health plan since the arrival of Europeans until Indian gaming comes along. Alcohol on reservations, obviously, if you have not heard about it, is a big problem. There's the number right there. Suicide rates on reservations. We have the highest suicide rates in the United States. I was told that suicide in this country is also a big problem. For different reasons, our kids, young adults, to put it simply, believe they have nothing to live for. They don't count. They're meaningless. It's a lot of studies, and some of the years I've studied are generational trauma, cross-generation trauma have an impact on this. And they're trying to fix it. It's just not going to happen overnight. Culture. With Indian gaming, one of the things that the history will tell you is that we were stripped of our culture, stripped of our language. We weren't allowed to speak our language. My grandmother tells us, when she was still alive, of a story when she was in school and she would speak Serrano, they would beat her. They would put her on rice and make her kneel on the rice and beat her thighs. This was called assimilation. This is what happened in the United States for many, many years, starting with the arrival on the East Coast, starting on the arrival on the West Coast, continuing into the United States. In fact, culturally speaking, at one time, I'm sure you're familiar with the gold rush of California, it was federally sanctioned, state sanctioned to go out, hunt, and kill Indians. If I recall correctly, it was $5 for a male scalp, 50 cents for a child scalp, $2 for a female scalp. And they paid this to the different militias that were formed during those times. So the survival of our identity, the survival of our culture has had a rebirth because of Indian gaming. As you can see by these up here, tribes have had the luxury of reclaiming their language, preserving their culture. Preserving their culture in this instance means being able to fight off development on sacred lands, being able to stop housing developments. California has been very, very proactive in the American Indian Heritage Commission, where if a development's going to take place, they have to petition and file that development with the Heritage Commission to make sure there is no sites there that they know of before they start digging. And if there is something that comes up, all work's supposed to stop. And because of Indian gaming, we've been able to hire just not lawyers, that ugly word, but monitors, people who go out and monitor the site and make sure they're following the law and imposing those laws. Because of Indian gaming, we have the ability to provide that, which is huge. My tribe alone is in the middle of creating an alphabet, if you will, of our language, using American or English characteristics to start developing and bringing back our language, and we have been learning our language once again. At one time, it was taboo not to speak your language. You were, as I said, beaten for it. And if you weren't beaten for it, you were made fun of. But now there's this revitalization that's coming back, that language. We have young kids now speaking Serrano. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing that's taking place right now. There is that feeling of freedom, that healthy feeling of sovereignty about speaking your own language and feeling comfortable speaking your own language. And last but not least, one of the things that I always marvel at when we talk, mostly back in the United States, is this idea that tribes are stuck in 1887. Now, I'll get it all the time. You don't look Indian. Well, what does that mean? You don't look Indian. I don't have the war bonnet on. I don't have the beads across my chest. Indians look very different. Indians aren't all the same looking. We're very, very diverse. If you go to the Great Lakes, they look nothing like Southern California Indians, who look nothing like Plains Indians. So we have a different look about us. And people don't realize that we're not stuck in 1887. We have moved beyond that. And we look very different. And there's just a snapshot of folks from across Indian country. That is my last slide. I hope I was able to bestow upon you something you didn't know already. Now, behind the slide, just so you know, Kyle, too, that there are more academic slides that give a little more information about what we talked about. So at your leisure, feel free to look at Cox and Cornell's slides. Pick up the article if you want to pick up there. It's all on there. So it's a little more in depth on Indian gaming, the formations and the creations. So I guess now we're going to go into question mode if there's any questions.
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. What are the restrictions, if any, on members of the tribe going into the casinos to gamble?
Across Indian country? I have never heard of any restrictions placed on members of the tribe going into the gaming operations. They are welcome to.
So, as you are aware, Singapore, for example, has restrictions on its citizens, whereas people coming from outside Singapore can go in and lose as much money as they want, but Singapore wants to protect its own people and have some kind of limitations.
Yeah.
I think Japan, that's one of the points about casinos it's being debated now as to, so.
Yeah, Japan is looking at, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, a 3-day out of 7-day, a 10 out of 28 at 6,000 yen per visit. So that's kind of how they're going to curtail the Japanese citizens from entering their operations. Yeah, they have self-banned, they have third party, and there's, you know, they've got mechanisms in place that will slow down. But with the ideas of addiction, there are other ways to get your quote-unquote gambling fix, from the lottery system to horse racing to the very well-known pachinko, they say it right, Ted? Pachinko parlors that allow an individual to have that, I guess, the rush, if you will, of gambling. So, yeah, they're going to stop them from going into the casino facilities, but there are still other mechanisms by which they can get their addictive behavior fix in, if you will. For Indian country, we do have blacklists. We do have the ability to ban people from the casino operations if either they choose to or the tribal government chooses to. But we don't have an outright prohibition on our own people going into the facilities. It hasn't been a problem for us. To put it in another way, it has not been an issue for our community. I can't speak for the other operations. They may have different mechanisms by which they utilize. The hard thing about doing research in Indian countries, as we show, there's 474 different gaming operations, which means there's 474 different bodies of law that govern that gaming operation. Under the federal umbrella, you have what's called the minimal internal control standards, which is the minimum. So everyone in any country has to follow those minimal standards. But everyone always goes beyond that and makes it more than just the minimum. So everyone has a different set of laws by which the gaming facilities are governed. So I don't have the same example to give that Singapore or Japan is contemplating. In Indian country, I just have not heard of an outright ban on their own people going inside the facilities.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's a good idea. Senator McCain had a big concern about that. He had a big concern on that, and as well as using cartoons on slot machines. I think he was dead correct on glorifying slot machines to the youth and sending the wrong signal. So I liken it to the ban on cigarettes on television commercials. I think it's the same concept.
So Dr. Marquez, you've led your tribal nation in a government capacity. You've helped to run a casino. What advice would you have for Japan as it begins its planning for a forthcoming casino industry? Any pitfalls to avoid? Any words of, any suggestions, any guidance?
Yes, and I've shared this with other folks as well. As Japan contemplates its arrival into the casino world, you have to, without a doubt, provide a heavy hand in the regulatory body. You have to be incredibly strong when it comes to regulating these facilities. It is best to be heavy-handed in the beginning and almost to the point where you're going to upset your operators, because once you have an instance that is negative in a casino operation, you'll never recover from it, because integrity is what this is all about. And if you lose that integrity, just that small setback, you will never, ever be able to regain that. because it's going to be the members of the community, the way these models are being created in Japan, that are going to be your ambassadors to get people like myself. I'll go eat there. I'm not going to lie. I'll go eat there because I love food, and your food is fantastic. But I'm not going to gamble there. And if I was a gambler and someone said, don't go there, here's what happened there. Foreigners are not going to want to flock to that facility and go give you money and wonder, am I getting it a fair shake? Are these games rigged? Am I being taken by the back of house? There are so many different things that goes through a gambler's mind when it comes to putting money down on the table for fun. If you have a moment by which something negative happens, the PR nightmare that follows, you will never be able to recover from it because it's all word of mouth. So high regulation from the very beginning is critical. It's key to making this work. As I shared with other people, I want to see you guys succeed. I want this to be something that is going to be something that works, because if it doesn't work here, if Japan jumps into the casino world and it fails, we all fail because something went wrong. What went wrong? I don't know. It becomes this unknown speculation of where did it go wrong? And another thing I'll add to that is transparency. As you start to contemplate 3 this time around, and they're looking at adding more, you have to have transparency. You have to let people know that these operations are up and up, that they're highly regulated. You have to have that highest level of integrity that takes place. And then you have to communicate. You have to communicate from facility to facility. If something bad happens at your facility, you're obligated to pick up that phone and call you and say, hey, this group's coming through. Look out for this. Without that, you're setting up someone else to fail. And if that casino fails, guess what? You're going to fail. Not so much because of an income stream, but reputation. Then it becomes, well, Japan's casinos are corrupt. I want to go do that. You can't have that. You cannot have that at all. And since I'm on this topic, one of the interesting things about this model Japan's contemplating is it's very much like Indian gaming. These are island models. You have a casino that's isolated from other casinos. It's not like Las Vegas, where you have the synergistic approach by which you can have your dinner at MGM and go gamble at Luxor and then come back to Hard Rock and have a drink later on. There isn't any of that. So you have to figure out a way, how do I create that synergy amongst these different campuses and provide, what I suggested was provide point shares between all 3 properties. That's going to make me want to go to that property and then come back to your property and then go to this property. There are unique challenges to the model that Japan's contemplating because the gamblers they're a fickle group to begin with. So.
Andrew Edsel from Carter J. Moran, a market research firm. So I actually asked Sal this question, and I'm going to ask you as well. In order to develop and I am biased a little bit, in order to develop
bias which way?
Biased towards market research.
Okay.
In order to develop that solution, or in order to develop that entertainment venue that draws people from the community and keeps people coming back, could you talk a little bit about some of the research that you've done in, among your client base or among the community? Are you doing qual, focus groups, interviews?
Yes.
Customer satisfaction studies?
We do it all. We do it down to the block. So we know where we're pulling the most from what sector within the valley, or San Fernando Valley to be more precise. We know exactly what they're spending. We know exactly who they are. We know their frequency of trips.
Right.
We know how to market to them directly.
Right. Is that through?
It's very important.
Is that through their player card?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's through just the other mechanisms of focus groups. Walking the floor, asking where you come from, because not everyone has a player's card.
Yeah.
So you try to get them to sign up for a player's card.
Right.
But they don't. You still have to go out and do the hard math, as I call it.
So I mean, with Japan, the way that they're going to do it is, the casino is going to be 3% of the total space.
Right.
They're still actually working out the numbers, which is like, what is the total space? So if you want to have a million square meters of parking space, then, oh, guess what? We get another 30,000 square meters.
I would like to think as regulators are going to go, no.
Probably won't happen, but.
But you do bring up an interesting question that I asked today with some folks we met with, is that how did you come up with that 3%?
I think they're still working that out.
That's what they said.
Which is why the laws haven't been announced, and the whole exercise of asking for someone to submit a proposal when you actually haven't submitted the plans and you don't have a firm grasp is a little premature, but yeah.
And I'll just kind of restate what I said earlier is the regulatory elements of this process start years before a license is given.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have those mechanisms in place. If you don't have it, then even if it's false, the perception,
Right.
as I always say, perception drives. And if you have a bad perception,
Right.
it drives people away.
Right.
So-
So, Japan with having that 3%, and maybe there's a couple of entrances, but there's going to be, shopping areas, there are going to be
Right.
restaurants, there are going to be hotels, and that, if you have a bad experience in a shopping area, you might not want to go back to touch anything else.
Right.
So you have to keep quality high, you have to keep customer satisfaction high, you have to develop things that keep people coming back. And it's going to be a challenge, but I think Japan is up for it.
And the other challenge too is the marketing strategy is all external. You're
Mhm.
looking at bringing in big conventions. That's the model that I see working here is you have to go out and you have to bring in these 10,000 plus conventions, which means competing with Vegas, competing with Macau, competing with Singapore. I mean, it's a world stage by which you're going to have to really get out there and compete to get these larger-than-life conventions to come here.
And you're going to have to keep it exciting.
Yeah, and with one facility, that's your only option. It's tough. It's really tough. I mean, the good news is if you look at the Vegas model, though you can't apply it here, but if you look at what's going on in Las Vegas on the Strip properties for the first time, or for a few years now, gaming or the casino floors are not the main cash crop.
Yeah,
It's
I think
everything else.
non-gaming is about 40%?
It's more.
It's more?
Yeah.
50, 60?
Yeah, it's a more than gaming. So
Right.
That's something to learn from. What are they doing there that allows people to go spend money but not gamble?
I had 3 friends who were in Vegas last week for a Microsoft event, so it's a lot of corporate
Yeah,
events.
and Vegas is an adult theme park, and it's a different animal. And if you ever go to global gaming, have you ever been to global gaming? There's probably 100,000 people there at one time, from Australia to Macau to Canada, from the United States. It's where everyone goes to look at the new gaming devices. That's who you're going to be competing with.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Well, Deron, thank you very much. It was very interesting. And it's a very topical issue. In our institute, we've been discussing having an event on this subject, and we felt very fortunate when Ted reached out to us. I'd like to also thank Ted Gover, who previously had arranged for Abraham Cooper, who's the director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, to speak here at the university. So thank you very much, Deron.
Thank you.